All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on Thursday afternoon. Today we're going to talk about Eagles Commanders, Giants, Falcons with Michael Penix under center, Bucs-Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and close out with our best bets. But Drew, let's start with your team, the Washington Commanders, getting 3.5 at home against Philadelphia. The total is 45.5. Talking about this on Fantasy Football Happy Hour the other day with Lawrence Jackson, we had a little debate where I was fairly adamant that Jayden Daniels is the better quarterback in this matchup. Do you think that's correct?
I do. Absolutely. And it kind of comes more to how you rate the quarterback, right? We got into a lot of lengthy discussions that were ultimately fruitless last year about Brock Purdy. And how do you rate Brock Purdy? And how could he be rated this high? How could he be top 5? This was Mr. Irrelevant, for crying out loud. And this is all because of the weapons. It's all because of Shanahan, blah, 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 blah. Well, I think the right way to treat rating quarterbacks is really to kind of combine, do a combined rating that qualifies the player and the system that they're in. You can separate out the skill position players. You have to, because that is largely something that's going to be fluid throughout the balance of the season. You can separate out the offensive line. You have to. That's something that's going to be fluid as players get injured and come in and out, and the unit itself improves or regresses over the balance of the season. But when it comes to sort of the quarterback, it's not just the quality of play that you get from that quarterback, but it's also, what the offensive coordinator is asking them to do. And you actually have had a perfect hand in glove fit between the skill set that Jayden Daniels brings to the table and what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. And them together have performed at a top 5 level this season. Now, I would put him more in the kind of rating him in the 7 or 8 level. But Hurts right now, and, kind of combine that with what has been a pretty lackluster scheme offensively from, a group that I'm not like a brain trust that I'm not really going to war with in Philadelphia, with Kellen Moore and Sirianni kind of constructing that offense. And there's a lot that they leave on the table. There's a lot of passing, in particular passing downs, that are just not especially impressive. There's a lot of predictability about Jalen Hurts' game that defenses kind of know. Were it not for the just obscene breakout from Saquon Barkley this year, which I think in a lot of ways came just down, a perfect marriage of his talent with the offensive line that the Eagles have was, this is an offense that I think would be rating as bottom half of the NFL. And I think Jalen Hurts has a relatively low ceiling, and married with an offensive coordinator that's not exactly sequencing plays or designing plays, that is, utilizing some of the best weapons in football. I think ultimately you have to rate Daniels and what he is in Washington higher than Jalen Hurts. Now, it's a relatively close margin. It's not like a slam dunk, clear and obvious. Washington's quarterback number is a 7 and Philly's a 4, right? Like, no. Philly's probably more like in the 65th percentile and Washington's at the 70th percentile. But that's meaningfully different, because that's the most important part of a handicap, is coming up with a fair number for quarterback and system. And Jayden Daniels, people kind of did a lot of hand wringing when, it was looking like, the people were figuring him out. He's hitting the rookie wall. Classic second half of the year, Cliff Kingsbury. And, those thoughts were kicking around in the back of my head too, as this team was struggling offensively through the middle of the season. But let's not forget, Daniels played through a pretty significant injury, and he played well, honestly, through that injury, including, a pretty incredible performance against the Bears, obviously capped with something that was somewhat fluky in the Hail Mary. But, that was a game where, let's not forget, he was 10% to play midweek and then got up for that game and played well. And, I think he's acquitted himself quite impressively throughout the balance of the season. I think he acquitted himself well on a short week as a rookie against the Philadelphia Eagles defense that's second or best in football. And, this is kind of funny that that game is sort of lost to history because it was Thursday, because it was kind of the middle of November. not that long ago. This was 4 games ago for the Washington, because they had their bye week in there. And honestly, like, I backed Philly that day pretty confidently at -3.5. That was not a comfortable win and cover. It really wasn't. It was late breakout runs for Barkley that really kind of solidified that that spread getting home. And to turn around in 1 month and go from Philadelphia in prime time on a short week against a rookie quarterback, this 3.5-point favorite, to normal rest, full strength on the road, 3.5-point favorites. That is a healthy adjustment in a relatively short period of time for the Eagles. And while I backed the Eagles over and over again over the last month, thinking that the market was having a tough time catching up to truly how good they are, I think pendulum has swung the other way, and they're getting a little bit too much credit right now, because what Hurts is doing at the quarterback position it's not differentiating. It really isn't. The Eagles are winning because they are getting themselves into positive game states, and because this defense is playing out of their minds. And I give all the credit to Vic Fangio for that, and some of the credit to Howie Roseman, because he did a nice job of kind of stealing 2 very good players in the draft to help solidify and turn this secondary around from one of the worst in football to one of the best over the course of one offseason. And that's not easy to do, but they have done it. And I think ultimately, if the Eagles win this game, if they cover, it's because they're keeping the Commanders in check, because the Commanders really only have the one weapon in Terry McLaurin. But Daniels right now, he is and has been at the top of the league in terms of total EPA generated all season long, despite the fact that he's only working with Terry McLaurin and with Cliff Kingsbury, who only has a handful of pitches. But yeah, he's quite awesome, and I'm very excited I really, knocking on wood, hoping the Commanders get into the playoffs this year, so that we get to see get his feet wet, get the rookie stinker out of the way early, because I think he's going to be part of the discussion as far as playoffs go in the NFC for years to come.
For sure. Since week 4, the Commanders have the 8th best defense by EPA per play. They have a top 5 pass defense. Do you think that's not like they've played all terrible teams in that stretch? They played the Eagles, they played Lamar Jackson, they've played capable opponents mixed in with the Jake Hayners of the world. How real do you think this defensive improvement is?
I think it has to be considered at least mostly real. Defense, as always, is a reflection a lot of the times of who you have played. And over that balance of time that you mentioned, there's kind of an inglorious set of quarterbacks outside of Lamar Jackson. Not a lot of guys that I would really expect to be narrative shaping when it comes to talking about the quarterback position. But that said, Dan Quinn, the taking Dan Quinn away from Dallas and him bringing a handful of guys who were not name brand stars, and then coaching up what was expected to be one of the worst units in football to being very, very passable, is a huge part of the story of this season. Daniel's breakout is going to kind of overshadow a lot of that. But, I right now rate the Washington defense 14th best in the NFL. And it is not necessarily, if you told me I was going to be here with these guys and no material changes, right? No big swings, and, kind of bringing in big, improvements in terms of personnel, I wouldn't have believed you preseason, but I think they've earned it. And I think this is a unit that, absolutely, deserves some more credit than the market is giving them right now. Market is rating them about 16th. So I guess I'm not that far ahead. Market rating the Washington offense at about 10th, which I think is a hair low. But that said, everybody is, it seems to be that the Washington's just a professional team. Like, everybody's doing their job. They're all trying hard. And in general, I think, Dan Quinn deserves a ton of the respect for this, and hopefully he wins on Sunday and is back at the top of the Coach of the Year board.
Okay. Today is the 4th day of BetMGM's 7 days of parlays. On Friday, account holders will receive an NBA same-game parlay boost token, score a bigger payout if your wager with the same-game parlay boost token hits. All right. Giants-Falcons. Falcons, 8.5-point favorites. Total is 42 flat. This line, the look ahead was in the 10.5 range for the Falcons. Then everyone saw Kirk Cousins play on Monday night, moved to 9.5. Now Penix comes in is down to 8.5. How do you adjust your rating for the Falcons with Penix coming in for Cousins?
Yeah, so this is a really, really fun conversation, and I'm inclined to try to keep my thoughts here brief and hear what you have to say about this, because Kirk Cousins was performing at a bottom 5 level before he got sent to the bench. And while in the medium and long term, the switch to Penix likely to be, somewhat of an upgrade, in the very, very interim short term, very, very short term here, he's a rookie making his first start. And there is a long history of that not going especially well for NFL quarterbacks. And maybe this is different. Maybe Penix is unique. Maybe the talent, that the Falcons have on offense, combined with, sort of the lack of talent that the Giants have on defense, changes the entire paradigm here. But I currently would rate this with Penix coming in as the 19th best offense in football. And I think ultimately the Falcons right now need to be rated in the ballpark of a -2 relative to an average. And so the question about getting to 8.5 for the Giants becomes, how low do you have them? And frankly, I can't get low enough to make 8.5 fair. So I think this is Giants or pass. What's your expectation for Penix? Do you think he comes? You've watched a lot of Falcons football this year. Does he come in and give these guys a shot in the arm? Or is this going to look like kind of classic rookie making their first start?
I think the interesting thing is that with Cousins and how he was being priced, I think that the market still had to bake in that the guy who lit up the Bucs, who lit up the Cowboys, that Kirk Cousins is still in there somewhere, and you still have to regress to the idea that Cousins can play at a competent level, just because, you can't just accept a small stretch as being who the guy definitively is going forward. And I get that that's probably the right approach. At the same time, watching Cousins against the Raiders, I think he's just done. Like, I just think that he was playing at a almost worst quarterback in the league type of level, where he just seemed completely mentally broken. Like the pick that he threw against the Raiders, I think that was a physical thing. I think that was just like he completely misread the defense. He's super jittery. He does not want to get hit. He doesn't seem to have any faith in his arm and his body. And so I get that the median, you have to say that the median outcome is that Penix is going to be worse than Cousins, given that he's a rookie quarterback, and it's Kirk Cousins who, for all his sins, had shown flashes this year of playing at a high level. But I just don't think it's possible to be much worse than Cousins was against the Raiders, and I don't think that he was going to turn it around. That is just my subjective take. And then as to how Penix will look, my thought would be that I don't think he's going to look. I don't think he's going to do much. I think they're just going to run the ball a ton. I just don't think he's going to throw a great deal. But it is strange where the Falcons, they're a very imperfect team. I would think median outcome is that Drew Lock is the better quarterback in this game, just because Michael Penix has never played a meaningful NFL snap. And so I was surprised that this is 8.5. But what do you think of the idea that Drew Lock is the better quarterback in this matchup?
Ooh, I hadn't really thought of that framing. That would surprise me, just because Drew Lock is
bad.
He's not very good. Yes, exactly. But even more than that, the piece, like the flashes in his very uneven career to this point, have kind of come with decent pass protection. And I don't know that this is exactly the type of offensive line that's going to afford him that. And there were moments this year where under duress, Drew Lock was doing really, really terrible things. and I would expect that, the fair rating for Lock and the system that Daboll's running right now for the Giants, somewhere in the 15th to 20th percentile, and I am expecting Michael Penix to be in the 20 to 25th percentile. So I guess ultimately the answer is I don't think Drew Lock is the better quarterback between these two. But you know who Drew Lock is better than? Any of the other options that the Giants have had recently. And so I think that's being missed a little bit by the market. You had the poo-poo platter of DeVito and Boyle last couple of weeks here for the Giants. And if you were, kind of watching the market and seeing the Ravens just get bet with, to oblivion with, no no breaks, then you're like, wow, I guess the Giants really need to be rated lower. And, certainly they're missing a handful of their best players, but I'm expecting Malik Neighbors to go. I'm expecting that, that this is probably as soft a test as you can give Locke. Like, the pass rush for the Falcons has been a little bit better lately, but they're still not anywhere close to kind of league average. And so, assuming that this doesn't turn into a hugely negative game state for the Giants, I think they're going to be pretty competitive in this one. And with a lot of dogs this week, I think you kind of have to ask yourself, like, is this sort of your season finale? We're going to see the teams that are tanking for draft position trot out some really questionable players in the final 2 weeks of the season. And just because this is sort of the last game before the holidays and all of the kind of, just people putting tape together that will be watched and will be considered real football. This is the last time for a lot of these Giants players to convince people in the building, hey, I need to be brought back for the rebuild for next year. Hey, I need to be given an opportunity to win a starting job on another team next season if it's not going to be here. And so, I think a lot of these dogs this week are going to give you a bona fide effort.
Okay, so imagine a world where there are two Drew Locks, a terrifying, confronting world. And one of the Drew Locks is the quarterback for the Falcons this week going up against the Giants with Drew Lock. Yeah. What do you think the line is?
What a setup. I think it's probably 7.5, 7.
I don't know. I think maybe I'm higher on Drew Lock. I watched a strange amount of Saints Giants a couple of weeks ago, and Drew Lock was great in the fourth quarter. Well, great's an overstatement, but he moved the ball down the field, so maybe I'm a little biased by my last taste of the Drew Lock experience, which is another terrifying thing to say.
The only handful of quarterbacks since week 12 who have been worse than Kirk Cousins include Desmond Ridder, barely worse than Kirk Cousins, CJ Stroud, yikes, Will Levis, Drew Lock, and Gardner Minshew.
CJ Stroud has worse EPA per play this season than Drake May, which is a little.
That's because
scary.
We'll get to Drake May in a bit, but
I think
it might be more of a Drake May commentary.
True. Yeah, no, I said and was lambasted for it by saying a couple of days ago that I think Drake May's had a better season than Bo Nix, and I think he's just better at football than Bo Nix, and will continue.
That was controversial.
People like Bo Nix, no, because people like that the Broncos are 9-5. Like, I think that's mainly because of the defense. And Nix has been fine, been passable. I think he's been better than expected, but I don't think he's been amazing. I think that Drake May is well, yeah, I think he's been pretty clearly better than Bo Nix this year. But we'll see how that plays out. All right, ring in the holiday season with the double dip of NFL football on NBC and Peacock this weekend. It all kicks off Saturday at noon Eastern as we lead you up to kickoff between the Texans and Chiefs. Then on Sunday night, Baker Mayfield and the Bucs travel to Dallas for a date with the Cowboys.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, Bucs-Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Bucs 4-point favorites in Dallas. The total is 48.5. Do you have any bet in this game, Drew?
Buccaroos laying the points with Tampa Bay here. I don't know that people have been watching much Bucks. I think
they don't play in any marquee games.
They haven't played any marquee games. They were left for dead at 4-6. Season's over. Is Baker Mayfield even the future of the franchise? And they've come out since then, and with Mike Evans back, done nothing but prove that they are a clear top 5 offense in the NFL. And when it gets to kind of declaring who's a top 5, it gets crowded fast. There's a lot of very good offenses right now and a lot of bad defenses. And it makes NFL more fun. But the Buccaneers, for what it's worth, are top 5 in EPA per play this season over the balance of the season. And they have been peaking lately. Baker Mayfield is getting outstanding protection from an offensive line that's clearly top 5 by my ratings. And I think that combined with a more balanced attack, thanks to the emergence of Bucky Irving, and led by a masterful offensive scheme developed by Mr. Liam Cohen, this Bucs offense is for real. And I don't know that that there will be an aha moment for people this Sunday, but there might be, because I think that the Buccaneers could not only win this game, and cover 4, but might put on, quite a show for the people, because the Cowboys are coming in with, some serious issues, particularly on the back end. And I think that the loss of Overshawn, who is kind of a standout at the linebacker level, the loss of Diggs, presents a pretty significant problem here for the Dallas Cowboys in terms of defending the Bucs. And we did see some flashes of Parsons against the last couple of weeks, but I think ultimately the Buccaneers flex hard in this game and get into the 30s, maybe higher. And I would expect the Cowboys, in particular, with some of the offensive protection issues combined with Rush being a little bit of a duck under pressure against a Todd Bowles scheme that's going to blitz the ever-loving bejesus out of him, sets up fairly well for the Buccaneers to get a couple of short fields, a couple of turnovers maybe, and just in general dominate time of possession here. So Bucs are being a little bit slept on in the NFC right now. I don't think there's as big of a margin between them and the other teams in the top 4 or 5 that people kind of consider as the true contenders in the NFC as the rest of the world thinks.
Yeah, this is an interesting one where we've talked about it a lot before, mainly in the context of the NBA, but the idea that lines are basically built off of stacking power ratings against each other, and the Bucs are a neutral team or so, and the Cowboys are a -6, and then home field gets you to a 4-point line or whatever, and it's basically off of team strength as opposed to the kind of, for the most part, calculated guesswork of how a matchup is going to unfold and how a team's strength is going to measure up with another team's weakness. And yeah, that stuff kind of informs line, particularly with the NBA playoffs, but that'll usually just be reflected in power ratings changing. But for this matchup in particular, I don't think you could get a better matchup for the Bucs in terms of what is Baker Mayfield, what is his kind of archetype. All right, well, he is awesome when he is kept clean and when quick pressure is mitigated, and then he struggles when he's under pressure. The Cowboys defense for years now has been all about being able to generate quick pressure through Micah Parsons and in previous years, DeMarcus Lawrence. And if they don't get quick pressure, they've been very vulnerable in the back end because of just the fact that, they don't have Trayvon Diggs now. Even when they did, he wasn't playing particularly well. Deron Bland has missed almost the entire season. Stephon Gilmore is gone. And so now I think you get a matchup where the Bucs O-line, which has been the hidden kind of hero of the team, I think that the Bucs O-line will mitigate the quick pressure of Dallas, and then you're going to have Baker Mayfield in a clean pocket going up against a very suspect secondary. And then on the other side, you have a Bucs defense that has been susceptible to explosive pass plays. And think about what my man Kirk Cousins did to them both times. Well, he doesn't really excel at throwing the ball deep and exploiting that is Cooper Rush. So, and I think the one area where the Cowboys have had more success lately has been leaning on the run and Rico Dowdle. Well, the Bucs have, perennially a really strong run defense. So I think the matchup elements really skew in Tampa Bay's direction to the point where this would be the type of game where I'm looking at, Bucks minus 9.5 on an alt line and just and looking at this getting out of hand.
Yeah, that's a fun way to attack it. My fare is close to 6. I laid the Bucks. Almost went with them as best bet this week, but figured we were going to talk about it enough in detail that I'd get weird. The kind of general final thought for you on the Bucks. Do you agree with me that in the landscape of the NFC, they are kind of more in the mix than people realize? Because right now, like everything, with the way their schedule breaks down the stretch, this is probably your 3 seed.
Yeah, I think that the thing with the NFC is that I just don't think any of these teams are terrifying. I think the best team right now with all of Detroit's injuries is probably Philadelphia, but they have their own issues with their passing offense and Hurts. I don't think Hurts is fine. Hurts is a good quarterback, but he's not typically at the level of a quarterback who is commandeering the best team in a conference. And also just like the Eagles have the worst vibe of any team that has ever been on a 10-game winning streak. There is just something off in the water in Philadelphia where it just doesn't, and it's not a great analysis, it just doesn't feel like there's a happy ending
something in the water.
Sirianni, Jalen Hurts season. So I think that, with the Bucs, they're all these, like the Bucs, the Rams, the Commanders to some extent, like I'd be shocked if any of these teams are in an NFC title game and win 2 playoff games to get there. Like I wouldn't be that shocked. Like I don't think there's any, like these teams aren't going to be like, 10-point dogs against anyone in the playoff game or anything crazy. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. The Bucs can throw the ball. Like Mayfield has played at a super high level this year. He has a really good ecosystem, and the defense has gotten better over the past month or so, where I think they have leaned correctly. They've just leaned into more variance that comes with just blitzing the hell out of teams and being like, well, if we're going to get burned anyway, we may as well go down by trying to create kind of splash plays on defense. So I think that's the right path for them to take. And they'll be a fun, frisky team that will probably lose in round 1 because they're not a great team. I think so. Well, their most likely matchup is going to be like the Packers or the Vikings.
3-6 is probably going to be Packers. Yeah.
They'll be dogs. They'll be dogs to either of those teams, even at home, I would suspect. All right, let's jump to best bets. Yours is a fun one, Drew. If you want to enlighten people.
Going back to the Drake May discussion, 32 out of 32 teams, GMs, take Drake May over Bo Nix in a redraft, and I don't think that's even really controversial. Sure, some of it is because he's younger, but I think he's proven very clearly in a completely system devoid of protection and kind of lean on skill position talent. He can play, and I think people have been having their turn beating up on the Buffalo Bills defense recently, and honestly, the Patriots need to get to 17, 20 points here to cover a 14-point spread. This Patriots team traditionally does play up against the Bills, and the Bills in general are in sort of the most clear and obvious exhale moment that has existed for an elite team in a long time. You've gone back to back now and had to just absolutely fight and claw and ultimately lose against the Rams, and then put your best performance together of the season to beat the Lions on the road. And now you're at home as a 14-point favorite with the holidays on the horizon, and you just need to win. And there was a very similar situation to this last year for the Bills hosting the Patriots as 14-point favorites with Bailey Zappi on the other side, and the Bills could not cover the number. So I do not mind going to war with Drake May and company to just show us something. This is also the perfect timing to get involved with the Patriots because they just could not cover against the Cardinals. People did not watch that game because it was in a crowded time on the schedule. And I will tell you, having seen it, it was very, very close. And I think ultimately, much closer certainly than the scoreline. And if you have the same sort of effort here from a Patriots team that, has some positives you can shine a light on, across some of their young players on both sides of the ball, I think you get good performances out of all of those young players this week in a game that means a heck of a lot more to the Patriots for proving that, that they're building something than it does to the Bills needing to send some sort of message that they're that much more dominant than the worst team in their division. So, this is an absolutely massive number, and I think it speaks to a distortion in terms of how good the good is in the NFL this year.
Yep. Need a minor miracle to take down Josh Allen for MVP. The Patriots aren't a great soldier to get it done, but I agree. I think they're a good enough soldier to cover 14.
Mac Jones beat him last year.
They're better now. I think they're better. a lot better now. The Patriots
Belichick was involved.
Belichick was involved. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in the Patriots defense giving Josh Allen any troubles at all. But I think a big thing of just as a mental exercise when you're backing a team that's a 14-point dog, we should be able to visualize, like, can my quarterback of the 14-point dog, is he going to be able to move the ball against the bend but don't break defense in the second half? And I think Drake May will. I think he can. I think he's been very solid, and I agree with you. I think he will cover the 14. I suspect the 7-1 money line, though, will not be getting up. You're going to war with the Patriots. Good luck with that. I'm going to war with the Baltimore Ravens. Minus 6.5 against the Steelers. There's been a lot of chatter. I think we've spoken about this, about how Mike Tomlin gives Lamar Jackson problems. Well, it's not as covered as much. I think that when Russell Wilson played a very vulnerable Ravens pass defense, he did absolutely nothing. He was terrible in that game that they played a couple weeks ago. And I think they won largely in spite of Russ in a game that the Steelers did not score a touchdown in. George Pickens' status is seemingly trending doubtful. TJ Watt looks like he will probably play, but might not be 100%. And I think the key is that one, I think the Steelers offense is like insanely dependent on Pickens and Russ throwing the ball deep and connecting with Pickens. And if Pickens isn't out there, then I think their offense there is just no oxygen in that offense. Like, there's just nothing to go to, nothing to lean on. And I think the Ravens, as you spoke about earlier in the week, like, it just doesn't make sense why this Ravens pass D is so bad. Like, it just has to get better at some point. Like, I think that, and they did get better against the Steelers when they played last time. So I think that the Ravens D will be able to keep the Steelers in check. And then I think that Lamar, I think they will have watched the tape last time, and I think they will score more than the 16 points or whatever they scored against the Steelers previously. I think the Steelers have the best pass rush in football. We'll see what Watt looks like, but if Watt is healthy, then I think they do. But I think Lamar is a quarterback who can certainly mitigate pressure and will be able to get explosive plays down the field against the Steelers and their suspect cornerbacks. So I think that the Ravens will cover 6.5 and move back into favoritism to win the AFC North. What do you think of the Ravens?
I love this play. I bet the Ravens. I think that there will be an aha moment for a lot of the handicappers before the end of the season, that the Ravens defense, oh shoot, they're good again. And I think it is well worth your time to do the exercise of pricing out Ravens against the Bills, Ravens against the Chiefs, as that is their most likely path on the road in the 2-3 and the 1-3. And figuring out how you want to have exposure to them, getting to the Super Bowl this year, because of the teams that I look across in the AFC, I have the fewest questions about them.
Is there a chance that the Ravens would be favored in Arrowhead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, I'm not sure, how does it map out? So most likely it would be in the AFC title game, given the Chiefs are favored to get the 1 seed and the Ravens probably, at best will be the 3 seed. And so the Chiefs will likely have won a playoff game to get there, and Hollywood Brown comes back and maybe they get a bit healthier. But yeah, I mean, right now, the Ravens, I think, are a +6 type of team, and the Chiefs are like a +4. The Chiefs just closed 4-point favorites against Cleveland.
Yeah, great. Market has the Chiefs more like +3.
Yeah, which I think that there is an element where the Chiefs will ramp up in the playoffs, start running the real plays. Mahomes will start scrambling more and activate God mode a little bit more, and he'll flip the switch just like they did last year. But yeah, I think that would be like pick, honestly, if it's Chiefs Ravens, rematch of last year.
Just neutrally, that's my expectation as well. I think pick to Ravens, small favorite, and but the factor that I think makes it the most interesting to consider is the Ravens will likely be coming off of a road win at the Bills.
Right.
which
Yes.
will
True.
really kind of pump their tires.
Yep. I think the Ravens will beat the Bills in the
Kind of do
playoffs.
too.
I
I mean, the Bills defense is so bad. I don't understand why that wasn't one of the key takeaways of these last 2 weeks. They are super gettable.
Yep. No, I agree there. Okay, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. For myself and Drew, good luck this weekend.